What's up guys, welcome back. This is Anime Crossover. You'll be watching What If Naruto Was in Bleach with 6 Eyes, Part 2. Now, let's begin. In the Soul Society, combat between Shinigami may occasionally conclude in an instant. When the power differential between the two became too vast, it was no longer a matter of stronger and weaker but of prey and predator. The Ryatsu, or spiritual pressure, was without a doubt one of the most versatile weapons a Shinigami had. For starters, each Ryatsu was unique. Not even twins had the same Ryatsu. Second, someone with a strong Ryatsu may utterly smash someone with a weaker one without using any weapons. If the disparity was too great, the person with the lesser Ryatsu may collapse, faint, or even die, depending on how much force was used. Jidanbo Ikenzaka was a formidable Shinigami who served as the guardian to the West Gate for almost 300 years. Even if he lacked talent, in terms of pure power, he would not lose to any 4th or 3rd seat, with the exception of few freaks like the 11th Division members. Even if such a guy used his Ryatsu to its full potential, none of those souls would be able to pass this test. Everyone was aware of this. Fortunately, not only was Jidanbo a nice guy, but the purpose of the test was not to make everyone fail. After a few hours, just 1,000 of the 10,000 persons who had applied to attend the academy had passed. Even then, the teacher was aware that Jidanbo had reduced the pressure to enable more to pass, but he did not condemn him. After all, he had also come from Rakangai. As a result, while outright cheating was impossible, he was willing to close one eye in the face of such behavior. After validating the timing, he clapped and proclaimed the conclusion of the preliminary round. Fortunately, there were no restrictions on the number of retakes. Even tiny Hisagi had to take the test twice before passing. Now, he is known as one of the top 60 pupils. Time was the least of their concerns. Now then, most of you guys can already more or less be considered as students of the academy. But the reality is that not all students are equal. This is where the second test comes in. The teacher began to lecture as a few Shinigami wearing cloaks that concealed all of their features appeared one after the other. Those sirs are the members of the Kido Corps. What they are holding are measure devices that will give an accurate reading of your Ryuryoku. You just have to touch the crystal ball and pour your Ryuryoku into it. Of course, it was not all. This exam hides a little trap. A certain quantity of energy was required, but so was the ability to regulate it. Those who were unable to pour their energy into the ball would not be measured and hence would not be deemed pupils. This test was designed specifically for pupils who had excellent skills but lacked strength. After all, not every Shinigami fought on the front lines. The test used to be much more rigorous because it included a physical component, but following the battle against Quincy approximately 150 years ago, the number of Shinigami had drastically decreased, making admission to the academy much simpler. Fail. Fail. Fail Class 2. Fail. As I expected, even though the standards were reduced, the rate of failures remains rather high. I don't think there will be a Class 1. CL Class 1. The teacher was taken aback and turned to face the stand where the student allocated to Class 1 was. Oh. Toshiro has passed. I'm happy. He raised his head and asked, Jidanbo, do you know him? Yes. Toshiro is a good guy. Toshiro is my friend. Hey, interesting. In general, Class 1 was populated with members of the nobility. Very few individuals from the Rakangai could join, and those who did were without a doubt geniuses. The instructor made a mental note of this youngster. His silver hair reminds me of Jin Ichimaru. That guy was something else. He didn't even have time to reflect on how the terrifying bastard sailed through a 6-year curriculum in only 1 year before he was astonished again. Class 1. Again. He nearly yelled and was even more astonished to see that this time it was a lovely silver-haired man with bandages over his eyes. His initial thought was, is he blind? His second thought as he ran his fingers through his hair was, does having silver hair aid in being a genius? Naruto's hair used to be yellow, but when he activated his bloodline and his bloodline became stronger as a result of becoming Azura Otsutsuki's reincarnation, his hair became silver. After the test, only around 100 pupils passed, and only 6, including Naruto and Toshiro, were allowed to Class 1. Despite the outcome, the teacher appeared pleased, and Naruto, given his experience, could understand why. Sending a wave of monsters would always suffice, regardless of one's skill level. However, in the supernatural realm, this rule was not actually applicable. The greater the power disparity, the more cannon fodder is required to equal it. That's why, for supernatural fighters, having one man who can behave as a nuclear bomb is far superior to having a swarm of fireflies. I truly wonder who is the strongest bastard in the world. He was the strongest shinobi when he was alive, and he would not be happy with anything less than becoming the strongest in this world as well. Looking at the sinking sun, the teacher addressed all of the examinees who passed. Now, for those who succeeded, you have the rest of the day to do whatever you want and say your goodbyes to your family and friends. After this, you will formally attend the academy tomorrow and will not be able to leave until the holidays in a few months. Understood? Yes. Okay, now I can introduce myself. My name is Kido Ayama. I teach the first years of Class 2. I just want to say, congratulations, and welcome to the Shino Academy. All of the Shinigami present applauded, causing the souls that succeeded to cry. Even Toshiro had a few tears in the corner of his eye. Naruto was the only one who felt bored. He wanted to rush inside the academy to grasp the idea underlying Kido and duplicate limitless. Even while he was still powerful with only the Rokugan, walking without limitless active made him feel uneasy, as if he were wandering about nude. This was not a sensation he enjoyed. Now, before you go, every one of you will register your name and family name, if you have one. You will also have your measurements recorded, and you must identify your dominant arm. All of their attention was drawn to the instructor's waist, where a sword was visible in its sheath. Even without being taught, they all knew why they needed to show their dominant arms. They would soon obtain their own Zanpakuto, which was necessary for them to be considered Shinigami. Naruto scratched his chin, thinking about what type of Zanpakuto he'd acquire. According to Momo, what the pupil received resembled the embryo of a Zanpakuto. Also known as a Sachi, or sword without a name. Once an Asachi and a Shinigami were attuned, people with the necessary talent may enable their blade to birth a soul and awaken a name. An Asachi could only be referred to as a Zanpakuto if they knew this name, and each Zanpakuto was unique because it was created from the souls of its wielders. Of course, based on what she told him, simply receiving the name wasn't enough, but she wasn't sure about anything, so she hadn't gone into great detail. Well, it's fine enough as long as I don't learn any worthless skills. Aside from some curiosity, he wasn't very excited about holding a Zanpakuto either. The most important thing for him right now was to achieve a suitable level in Kido. If he could conquer Limitless once more, as long as he didn't meet some strange bastard capable of messing with time and space, he'd be unbeatable. I should also perfect sealing methods. As an Uzumaki, I should have done so when I was alive. Naruto reflected, I regret that I did not learn sealing from my Uzumaki clan when I was alive, because I was too confident in myself back then, when I had 6 eyes and limitless. Naruto, are you going with me? Ha ha ha. Nah, not now. You and your grandmother must have many things to say to each other. Go spend some time with her. They left after doing what they needed to do, and Toshiro waved farewell to Jidanbo. They were going through the Rakongai when Toshiro suggested they go home together. Of course, Naruto declined. He might say farewell later, but at the end of the day, he was still a stranger. Toshiro's ability to express himself would be limited as long as he was present. Furthermore, Toshiro's decision to enter the academy was partially his responsibility. As a result, he felt a little uneasy in front of the sweet elderly woman. Are you sure? Toshiro asked with considerable concern. For the last several days, he had come to regard Naruto as a friend, if not a sort of older brother. Authors note silver hair gang in the Rakongai, traditional families did not exist. After all, the great majority of them lacked the vitality required to sense hunger, let alone give birth, like the souls in the Siriidii. Furthermore, the likelihood of locating your family members from while you were alive was extremely unlikely as long as you did not die at the same time, moment, and location. Even so, the prospects were still slim. As a result, all Rakongai households were mostly adoptive in nature. The same was true for Toshiro, Momo, and their grandma. The 3 of them had been living as a family for over a century, despite the fact that they were not related when they lived. In this world, they were his most treasured family. Still, he realized that Naruto, as a fresh soul, was unfamiliar with the way souls in the Rakongai lived. He was feeling a little sad when his hair was unexpectedly ruffled. Naruto. Crouching down in front of him, Naruto remarked, "Man, watching you look down like this makes me feel like I'm doing something wrong. Come on, let's go home. I'll prepare something to show my appreciation to the old hag." "Ah. Yes. I am sure Grandma will be happy." The remainder of the night went as well as possible. The grandma begged him to take care of Toshiro and Momo at the academy and wished them luck. He could tell how kind-hearted this woman was. Naruto had always lacked familial warmth, even throughout his existence. After all, Limitless might be used by all Namikaze clan members. Without the Rokugan, Limitless was merely a slightly stronger cursed technique that was nearly hard to employ. Like a result, from the moment he was born, he was treated like a god by everyone in his clan, and by the time he entered Shinobi Academy, he was already the unofficial head of the Namikaze clan. And, if you're wondering if the Namikaze clan existed in the elemental countries, the answer is yes. Oh, and Naruto didn't suffer like canon because he was under the care of the Namikaze clan, who did all in their ability to keep him safe from the village. That's why Naruto had to confess that the few days he spent under this house with this sweet old woman and his two slightly troublesome siblings had been very relaxing. Naruto swallowed down the entire cup of cheap sake in one go, staring at the full moon high above him. To a new beginning. He then coughed violently. Damn, what the hell do they make this thing with? My badass moment was totally ruined. Cursing, he pulled a dango off the platter on his side. Yeah, this is the stuff. Within the human world. A frightening roar echoed across the sky. Under the moonlight, a gigantic white creature with a hole in the center of its chest and a mask covering its face was contentedly munching on a sack of flesh and blood. The terrible sound of bones gradually being crushed and flesh being eaten apart could be heard. A Shinigami stood next to it, terrified and shivering all over. He knew he wouldn't make it out of this alive. He knew he'd soon find himself in the jaws of the beasts they pledged to exterminate, just like his friend had. At least, I need to warn them. Even though he knew he was going to die, he had long been prepared for it. All that mattered now was that their deaths would not be in vain. Those hollows are odd. Aside from their totally white coloring, their ability to completely conceal their Ryatsu made them a formidable menace to typical Shinigami like them. However, as long as the headquarters were aware of the threat, it would be eliminated. Transmitting what he knew to his hell butterfly, he watched it slowly fade away with a satisfied look. At least, I shoot to kill. Shinso. He hadn't even finished his statement when his butterfly was pierced by a beam of light so rapidly that he scarcely realized what was going on. The last thing he spoke before dying in remorse was, "Vice Captain Ichimaru." Why? Then he was instantly divided in three by the same ray of light, and his bodily pieces were swallowed by the whole, erasing all evidence of his existence. A silver-haired guy with a jester's smile stood around 1 kilometer from the scene of the two Shinigami's deaths. Well, it seems like the captain's little experiment nearly got discovered ahead of time. In his hand was his Zanpakuto, a short sword that resembled a slightly longer knife rather than a genuine sword. He had just used his shuriken, which enabled him to extend his blade up to 1.5 kilometers at a pace 50 times faster than sound. No typical Shinigami could respond to such an onslaught. Sigh, I really wonder if I should claim some raise for overtime work. Even though he had personally murdered a Shinigami under his command in the 5th Division and saw another being consumed alive, he exhibited no sorrow at the sight. After all, this wasn't his first time doing such things. Well, I think this is enough. I should go back now and erase those two from the books. Each time a Shinigami went on a mission in the realm of the living, they had to report back to their captain, who would then present it to the Central 46. Of course, in this case, he had ignored the protocol entirely, and those two Shinigami would soon be buried among the hundreds of Shinigami that vanish each year. Giving one final look at the city, he let out a quiet chuckle before turning around and passing through the newly materialized gate. Behind him, the hollow let out a pleased burp as it consumed its prey before disappearing altogether. Shino Academy. In the academy's office, two people faced each other. One of them was a somewhat round bald male, and the other was a tall, well-built black-haired young man with the number 69 tattooed on his left cheek. Shuhei Hisagi, how are you? I am perfectly all right, teacher. If you excuse me, why was I called at this hour of the night? Ha ha ha. As straightforward as always. Well, I won't take much of your time. You should know that the students for the second session will enter tomorrow, right? Indeed. Well, after they have some time to acclimatize themselves, it will be time for the special course of soul burial in the human world. It's a tradition for the best 3 sixth years to lead the first-year students from Class 1, and you, Kanisawa, and Oka had been chosen as the representatives. What's more, it was decided that you would be the main leader. So, are you willing? Hisage's eyes widened with amazement. Leading the first-year students through their first soul burial may appear to be a thankless chore, but it was actually indication that the teaching staff trusted in your talents. As a result, all 6th-year students competed furiously for this distinction, and the majority of the time, those picked were members of the nobility rather than Rakangai natives like him. Once he finished this duty, if he ever wanted to become a sitting officer in any division other than the 11th, those credentials would be quite beneficial. How could he be unwilling? I accept. Of course, you have to be careful. Being the leader means that most of the responsibility in case of problems will fall on you. But, I believe in your abilities. Thank you very much for the praise, teacher. I will endeavor to not disappoint you. He bowed in appreciation and barely controlled his emotions so that his apparent satisfaction did not appear. Regardless, this was an excellent opportunity for him. Furthermore, soul burial was a straightforward procedure with no risk. Rakangai, West Gate. Even before morning, most of the successful examinees were already standing and waiting for the gate to open. Naruto, still wearing his blindfold, was yawning exaggeratedly. He had wanted to sleep a bit more, but Toshiro was too eager, so he had to follow him. Fortunately, it appeared that the teachers had anticipated this and did not wait long. Jidambo carefully raised the big gate over his head as he stood in front of them. For the residents of Rakangai, it was like entering a new universe. The teachers waited behind the gate, smiling, "Welcome to the Siriiti. Siriiti, Shino Academy." The trip from the West Gate to the academy was short and direct, but it had opened Naruto's eyes. Even though it was still the feudal age, the distinction between the Rakangai and the Siriiti was as stark as that between heaven and earth. Even the air felt cleaner, and everyone seemed wealthier and stronger. After receiving their uniform, which consisted of a kimono in white and blue for the males and white and red for the ladies, they were informed that their asachi would be presented to them only at the first senjutsu lesson. The lecturer didn't say much about it, stating that everything will be explained once the students arrived at their various classes, and just provided them with the essential information. After that, they were summoned, along with the rest of the school's pupils, to the courtyard to hear the academy founder's address. Naruto, who had been bored out of his mind, finally concentrated. A slumped elderly guy with a long beard and huge brows stood on the platform, holding a cane and dressed in a black kimono and a white hakama with the number 1 on it. "I am Yamamoto Shigekuni Genryusai, captain of the 1st Division, captain commander of the Godei 13, and founder of the Shino Academy. To all of you Shinigami aspirants, I have one word. Welcome." The quiet descended as everyone was taken aback by the living legend standing before them. The same was true for Naruto, although for a totally different reason. The old man is a monster. For the first time in a long time, Naruto felt cold perspiration on his back. No other words could describe what he saw. Had already seen a captain, but in comparison to the elderly guy standing in front of him, Soifan was like a mild candlelight, but this man was a true inferno. So, was he scared? Nope, the answer was no. Actually, it was completely the opposite. He felt exhilarated. Naruto was really strong. He thought of himself as the strongest. But he didn't get any joy from overpowering those who were much weaker than him. Haha, this is awesome. Meanwhile, Yamamoto kept going with his speech, saying, "I'll be straight with you. I started this academy over 2,000 years ago with just one simple goal in mind. Get the soldiers ready and train them to fight for the Soul Society. Starting now, you all are soldiers and will be treated that way. Hey soldiers, just remember this simple rule." Yamamoto took his time to glance at everyone, pausing briefly on Toshiro and Naruto. Don't go looking for beauty in battle or glory in death. Don't view your life as just yours. Sometimes, to safeguard what needs protecting, you might have to take down your enemy from behind if it comes to that. He said this in a calm way, but his ryatsu spread out across the whole field, maybe even the whole school. Even though this aura didn't mean any harm, It was so intense that everyone felt he could easily overpower 90 of the people there if he wanted to, just with his presence. Naruto was one of the rare ones who could still be on his feet without gasping for air, and he had to admit that he really appreciated those principles. Even though the names were different, shinobis, sorcerers, and shinigami were pretty similar at their core. They weren't really knights or heroes. They weren't in it for honor or justice. They had a straightforward goal to wipe out the hollows and curses, and for that, they were willing to get their hands dirty. Unfortunately, being one of the higher-ups in Konoha during his lifetime, he understood that things weren't that simple. Every organization has its share of darkness and politics, after all. But you know what? That didn't really matter. He had never really fought for anyone or any specific cause. He never really felt that sense of justice or the urge to save the world like some of his students or friends did. In the end, what really counted was that he had to be strong, because only the strong get to shape their own destiny and live life on their own terms. This was the truth when he was alive, and it seemed that this was also the truth in the world of souls. Meanwhile, Yamamoto, looking pretty content with the quiet around him, nodded and said, "This is all. I won't drag this out with a long-winded speech. Hey there. Make sure to follow the instructions and hop into your homeroom class so you can get the scoop on the curriculum for this year. Hope you all have a fantastic year ahead." He said those words, then turned around and stepped down. So, this is how Naruto Uzumaki kicked off his first day at the academy. Contrary to what it looked like, the Shino Academy actually had more than just 2 classes for each year. Actually, there were up to 4 classes. So, the only thing that set them apart was that the 3rd and 4th classes were just for nobles who didn't really have any fighting skills. In those classes, the students picked up some general knowledge and a few basics, but nothing too in-depth. The 2nd class had the highest number of students, whether they were noble or not. You could also call this class the regular class. Just because you're in class 2 doesn't mean you can't be strong. Actually, there were some class 2 students who ended up becoming seated officers. Even so, none of them ever quite made it to the rank of vice captain or above. So, here we are, class 1, often referred to as the elite class. That class had the fewest students, and most of them were nobles. Every student from class 1 who made it through the road ended up as seated officers, no question about it. And with just a few exceptions, all the current captains who passed through the school were part of class 1. Shino Academy, class 1 homeroom. Class 1 felt just like any other shinobi class that Naruto could remember. It was kind of surprising how few students showed up. Almost 50. As soon as Naruto and Toshiro walked in, they spotted Momo waving at them with a lot of excitement. Naruto. "Hey, Shiro-chan. Hey, come over here. I saved a spot just for you." Naruto chuckled softly, and Toshiro's face turned red with embarrassment. Getting called by such a cute nickname in front of his new classmates on the first day was definitely not something anyone could get behind. Interestingly, even though Toshiro wasn't exactly a spring chicken, being in his 50s at most, he definitely felt like the youngest person in the room. Actually, the youngest. Naruto chuckled a bit before he thought it would be a good idea to jokingly warn Momo and Shiro to keep his age a secret. With all the students watching, Naruto and Toshiro walked over to Momo, who was sitting with 2 guys. A blonde guy who seemed a bit shy and a red-haired guy with a classic Yankee vibe. "Hey there. Are you going to introduce us to your friends?" Naruto gave a frivolous salute with his usual smile as if nothing could bother him in this world. "Absolutely. Naruto and Shiro. Yeah, they're my schoolmates. Renji Abarai and Izuru Kira. So, Renji and Kira, those are the 2 I mentioned before." The boy named Renji gave a scrutinizing look at Naruto as he said, "This sissy-looking guy is the one who killed a hollow you said." "Hey, Renji. Hey, sissy." Naruto lifted the edge of his blindfold to get a clearer view of Renji from head to toe. Renji was surprised by what he had done. He really thought the guy was blind, after all. That simple laugh, dripping with disdain and saying so much more than words ever could, felt like a real punch to the gut. "Bastard. What are you trying to say?" Sighing, Naruto plopped down and said, "I mean, just look at you. Hair all over the place, clothes that are a bit of a jumble, and a way of talking that's a little wild. You're not bad looking, but everything else kind of takes away from that. Hey, I guess you're not exactly the most popular guy with the ladies, huh? Renji couldn't shake the image of that short black-haired girl who always called him peasant or monkey. It played in his mind as he crumbled down in defeat. Haha. You're way too young to take me on. Renji chuckled awkwardly and said, "Hey man, your tongue is seriously poisoned. I really appreciate straightforward guys like you. No worries about the rough start. So, just like Momo mentioned, my name's Renji Abarai. You can just call me Renji. Naruto Uzumaki. You can call me either way." They gave each other a friendly fist bump. It's funny how, just moments ago, they were in a disagreement, and now you wouldn't even guess it by looking at them. Sure, Naruto definitely had his reasons. He could tell the difference between real bad intentions and just plain curiosity. You know, this wasn't the first time someone had pointed out his rather delicate look. But once he got to the top, folks stopped this kind of teasing. Everyone sit down. Time for class. Further discussion stopped the moment the homeroom teacher entered. Good morning, everyone. A special welcome to the new students. I'm the homeroom teacher for the first-year students in Class 1. Hey there. I'm Gengoro Onabara. A bald guy stood on the podium, introducing himself. He wore a serious look as he glanced at all the students sitting before him. The Shino Academy is going to show you all the stuff you need to know to become great Shinigami. To get started, the first thing you'll want to learn is the Zanpakuto, which are the basic fighting techniques for Shinigami. He said this and then started to show a diagram on the blackboard. Zan refers to sword fighting techniques or Zanjutsu. Ken refers to unarmed fighting techniques or Hakuta. So, it's all about movement techniques or Ho-Ho. Ki refers to spell techniques or Kido. Facing the students he continued, in order to graduate, you must at least reach the practitioner rank in all the 4 arts over the 6 years you will pass here. After this, depending on your grades, you can be sent to a special department, enter the Gotei 13 or both. One of the new students raised his hand and asked, "What are the special departments?" He nodded and said, "There are a lot of special departments. Some of them are attached to the Gotei 13, while some are independent." Tapping on the blackboard, a new diagram popped up. You know, the first and probably the most famous special department is the Secret Corps, which is pretty ironic when you really think about it. To enter this department, a great mastery of Hakuta and Ho-Ho is necessary. About 60 years back, the Secret Corps got connected to the 2nd Division of the Gotei 13 thanks to the 23rd head of the Shihoin family, Yashiro Shihoin, along with the current captain of the 2nd Division, Captain Soifan. Naruto thought to himself, looks like that little loli was actually a pretty big deal after all. Haha, I'm curious if we'll cross paths again. Gengoro took a moment and then asked, "Hey, does anyone know what rank the Shihoin family has in the Suriidai?" Kira raised his hand and said, "It's one of the 4 great noble families." Absolutely. You'll get to know more about this in general knowledge courses, so I won't dive deeper into that topic. How about we revisit those special departments? He went on, so, the second most well-known special department, which some of you might have already encountered, is the Kido Corps. I guess I don't really have to spell out which art you should master to get in, do I? It's pretty clear what the name means. Alright, let's keep going. So, there's this third department that not many people know about, and it was set up 60 years ago by a guy who was nothing short of a genius. Kisuke Urahara, huh? Former captain of the 12th Division and head of the scientific department. XD Captain Mayuri Kuratsuchi is the current leader of this department and also the captain of the 12th Division. It was pretty clear he didn't like that name, just by the look on his face, but it didn't stick around for too long. To get into this department, you really need to have outstanding grades in Kido, especially in Bakudo, which is all about the way of binding. Plus, a solid grasp of general knowledge is a must. So, let's talk about the healing department. It was set up around 200 years ago by Captain Retsu Unohana from the 4th Division. This division focuses on the art of Kaido, which is all about healing, and it's a part of Kido. As for entering the Gotei 13, to enter any division aside from those previously cited, your mastery in Zanjutsu and Heido, or the Way of Destruction, the third and final subdivision of Kido, will be necessary. He calmly addressed the class before asking, "Are there any questions?" He posed this question, seemingly without anticipating a response. He had clearly articulated his explanation, and it was only the first day for half of the class, while the others possessed prior knowledge. However, his expectations were somewhat unmet when one student raised his hand. Directing his attention toward this student, the first observation he made, aside from the student's rather handsome appearance, was the blindfold. He considered for a moment whether this student might be blind, but he did not view this as an issue. He recalled with great appreciation one of his students from nearly a century ago, Kanami Tozen, an exceptional and honorable individual who, despite his blindness, persevered to ascend to the position of captain of the 9th Division. Reflecting on this, his tone softened slightly as he responded, "Yes, what is your question? Would you kindly provide an introduction of yourself?" "Thank you, instructor. I am Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, and I have a brief question." "Please proceed." "Is the duration of the curriculum 6 years?" "Exactly." "In that case, if I aim to conclude it in under 6 months, what actions should I take?" This question caused a significant reaction throughout the entire classroom. The class concluded following Naruto's remarkable question. The remainder of the day was structured as independent study to facilitate students' adjustment to the school environment. Regarding Jinboro, he was rendered speechless and responded by affirming that early graduation was indeed a possibility. Throughout the extensive history of the Shino Academy, there have indeed been exceptional individuals who completed the school curriculum in a timeframe shorter than the standard 6 years. The two most recent individuals to achieve this remarkable accomplishment were Kain Shiba, who completed it in just 2 years and currently serves as the vice-captain of the 13th Division, and Jin Ichimaru, who set a new record by finishing in just 1 year and is now the vice-captain of the 5th Division. This illustrates the surprising nature of Naruto's questions regarding completion within a mere 6 months. As is often the case with rumors, within a few hours of the class concluding, both students and faculty were informed, resulting in a range of responses. Transitioning from ridicule to consideration. In the meantime, Naruto, the catalyst for this commotion, remained indifferent to the situation. In reality, he had not intended to take 6 months to complete this school. His primary motivation for joining the academy was not to acquire education, but rather to gain information, knowledge, and influence. Furthermore, it was not merely an issue of arrogance. Naruto was familiar with this type of organization and comprehended their operations thoroughly. What they required the most were powerhouses. The greater the talent you demonstrated, the more resources would be allocated to you. Naturally, such displays would also lead to certain challenges and adversaries. However, what would motivate his concern? Consequently, after the class concluded and he located his room, he chose not to accompany Momo and the others in exploring the campus. Instead, he hurried directly to the Temple of All Knowledge, the library. Shino Academy Library. The Academy's library resembled other libraries in his world. He found it to be a minor issue, as he was accustomed to reading both. Several hours had passed since Naruto took a seat in a secluded corner of the library, where a substantial collection of books was prominently displayed on the table he had reserved. It is evident that, even in the realm of the dead, the library was among the less frequented spaces for students. His situation would have remained unchanged were it not for his pressing desire for knowledge. Initially, he was denied entry due to the absence of a card and the restrictions on the number of books a first-year student could borrow. However, his appealing appearance proved to be advantageous in this situation. A few carefully chosen words, a touch of playful banter, and a commitment to a future meeting were sufficient to persuade the 6-year student employed in the library to grant him access to her personal account. Contemplating the striking appearance of the woman who is likely the same age as his great-grandmother, Naruto let out a hollow laugh. This was something he had to become used to. People here discuss events that occurred a century ago as if they transpired just a year prior. Furthermore, it has been a considerable duration since he has enjoyed the company of women. To him, Momo was insignificant. Her age in relation to him was inconsequential. In his perspective, she resembled a charming sister rather than a potential partner. Well, I can satisfy my primal urge later. Now, I gotta focus on the important matters. Despite enduring a significant headache, his extensive hours of study proved to be productive, allowing him to bridge some gaps in his foundational knowledge. He had already made a definitive decision regarding the division he would strive to join, regardless of the challenges involved. Ultimately, even if he succeeded in recreating Limitless, he would only be able to harness the full potential of that power if he had access to a healing technique capable of repairing the damage to his brain caused by its use. This is getting hard. In order to utilize Limitless once more, I must first comprehend the application of Ryoryoku. He mumbled with frustration. During his lifetime, he possessed the innate ability of Limitless, which had never posed any challenges. However, the situation was more complex here. However, this was inconsequential. Ultimately, prior to its designation as an inherited technique of the Namikaze clan, Limitless was originally a cursed technique developed by his ancestor, Azura Otsutsuki. Inherited techniques were methods transmitted through the bloodlines of sorcerer families. The continuous effort over generations enabled a technique, initially acquired externally, to become fundamentally intrinsic. Among all the techniques, the Limitless, although not the most unpredictable or the most dangerous, stood out as one of the strongest. The rationale behind Naruto's perception of Limitless, despite his pride, was that, in isolation, Limitless functioned merely as a somewhat inconvenient defensive technique during the neutral phase, Infinity. Ultimately, due to the extensive calculations required, Infinity was largely ineffective in most situations. The technique of Limitless was insufficient on its own. Its full potential can only be realized when utilized in conjunction with the Six Eyes. The most significant issue was that, despite the Six Eyes, this technique still exhibited notable deficiencies. Naruto experienced a sharp pain in his head as he recalled the moment he narrowly escaped death at the hands of Kagaya Otsutsuki. If he had not completed the reverse curse technique and learned to heal himself, or if Kagaya had driven the blade a bit deeper into his brain, he would have faced dire consequences. With his feet resting on the table, Naruto leaned back in his chair, contemplating his future actions. Haste often leads to inefficiency. I will utilize the first week to acclimate to the school environment while dedicating my spare time to furthering my understanding of Kido. Unfortunately, students, including those in their 6th year, were limited to learning Kido up to number 60. Both in Heido and Bakudo. The records for Kaido were virtually non-existent. This was another reason why he had to graduate fast. After gaining a foundational understanding of Kido, the next critical step was to assess his ability to utilize cursed techniques. Ultimately, Limitless represents the highest level of complexity among all cursed techniques. If he is unable to replicate basic curse techniques, it would be quite absurd to expect success with Limitless. Reflecting on this brings a sense of amusement. Perhaps I could emulate the Kasuke individual and establish my own department. Contemplating the possibility of establishing his own Jujutsu High Academy, it is important to note that Jujutsu High did exist in the Elemental Nations, albeit without the popularity of other academies. Admission was limited to shinobi capable of utilizing curse techniques, meaning only members of the Namikaze clan and a select few outside of it could gain entry. His heart raced with excitement as he affirmed, "Yes, let's proceed with this endeavor. I am determined to become the inaugural sorcerer of the Soul Society." Class 1 Dormitory of Shino Academy. A beam of sunlight entered through the window of the room. Reclining on the bed, Naruto furrowed his brow before revealing his striking blue eyes. He rose and performed a brief stretch before turning his gaze to his side. There, lying next to him was a naked girl. The librarian. Her body is fully displayed in an alluring manner. She was relatively petite, and he acknowledged that she did not possess some of the physical attributes he typically preferred in women. However, she was undeniably charming, and it was clear that he was not seeking a long-term commitment. Throughout his life, he maintained numerous relationships with various women, all of which were influenced by Jiraiya. Her full name was Hataru Kanisawa, a 6th-year student and quite skilled from what she said. It appeared that she ranked among the top 3 students. Even though Naruto was quite full of himself, he was at first a little surprised at how easy it had been. Although it may have disrupted the atmosphere, he asked about her unusual acceptance, and the explanation was rather surprising. Firstly, she was approximately 400 years old, which contributed to her having fewer reservations. Additionally, a few days prior, she had participated in a mission during which 4 out of 10 official Shinigami lost their lives. So she had been feeling quite stressed. It could be argued that he was merely positioned advantageously at a pivotal moment. Despite the unusual circumstance of his encounter with a woman of 300 years, her revelation regarding the nature of death rendered him speechless. He was familiar with such realities. Ultimately, very few jujutsu sorcerers have been known to pass away from natural causes associated with aging. It appeared that he had roused her from sleep, as her eyes fluttered momentarily before gradually opening. Initially, she appeared somewhat disoriented, but her demeanor changed dramatically as she recalled the previous night's events, causing her to blush deeply. She had never considered that she could exhibit such uninhibited behavior in the bedroom. It had been approximately 200 years since her last sexual relationships, yet even during that time, she had never experienced feelings like this. She offered a somewhat uncomfortable laugh before turning her head to the side. "Please put your clothes on." Naruto, with his hands placed confidently on his hips, stood tall and asked, "Why?" "I have nothing to feel ashamed of. We should still have time before class, correct? What are your thoughts on another round?" She paused briefly before nodding, fully aware of the realities of their relationship. She did not desire anything. However, occasionally releasing control did not appear to be detrimental. Shortly, expressions of pleasure echoed throughout the room once more. 1 hour later, a still flushed Hataru donned her uniform. Her legs were still trembling from the earlier encounter with Naruto, and she was once again struck by how enjoyable it had been. Fortunately, each room included a bathroom, allowing her to cleanse the sweat and other substances on her body. As she was arranging her hair, she suddenly remarked, "I would like to mention that in approximately 1 to 2 months, my colleagues and I will be responsible for guiding the first-year students of Class 1 in a practical course focused on soul burial. A surprise examination will be conducted regarding hunting hollows. However, it is important to note that these will consist solely of dummies. The 3 of us will evaluate your performance." "Oh." Naruto, still partially undressed, raised an eyebrow and remarked, "That doesn't appear to be the appropriate thing to say, does it?" Hataru turned her head aside and stated, "It doesn't really matter. Provided that you keep this information confidential, everything will be fine." Naruto expressed his gratitude with a chuckle, saying, "Thank you, I appreciate it." Coming closer to her, he lowered himself and kissed her on the forehead. "You can come to me anytime you feel stressed." She flushed deeply and muttered, "Idiot," before hastily opening the door and exiting his room. After her departure, Naruto shook his head, donned the upper portion of his attire, and secured his blindfold before proceeding to exit. Upon exiting his room, he glanced at the corner of the hallway before summoning someone. "Momo, what is your timeline for remaining out of sight?" A flustered Momo emerged from the corner, her face flushed. "I apologize, I did not intend to intrude or anything. I just wanted to wake you up and show you the way. I arrived recently." The dormitory was organized by class and year rather than by gender. Ultimately, everyone present has matured beyond childhood. Naruto was aware that she was not being truthful. He had sensed her presence outside his door for approximately 40 minutes. However, he chose not to address the issue directly, stating, "Haha, it isn't a problem. Could you please remind me which class we have scheduled next?" This inquiry appeared to bring her back to reality. "Zanjutsu. You will receive your Asachi shortly." "Asachi, is it?" He observed the sword that was positioned at her waist. Based on his observations, it appeared that all Asachi were fundamentally similar, and even those that appeared distinct did not exhibit significant differences. There is a variation in length or width. Based on his understanding, this disparity primarily stemmed from the variation in both the quantity and quality of Riryoku. However, possessing a larger sword did not necessarily indicate greater strength. He recalled distinctly that the sword possessed by Soifan was notably short. This indicated that the dimensions of a sword were primarily concerned with energy management and individual preference. It would be quite funny if some newbie was considered strong just because he had a sword bigger than most people. Shino Academy Training Facility. Upon entering the training ground, Naruto was taken aback by its impressive size and well-appointed features. A spacious area comparable to 2 football stadiums, featuring training dummies, targets, a track course, a resting zone, and various additional amenities. Upon recalling that this area was solely designated for Hakuta, Zanjutsu, and Ho-Ho, he found himself contemplating the appearance of the Kido training field. In the center of the field, a substantial line was observed gradually progressing, with each individual receiving an item in succession. "Hello. What caused the delay in your arrival? I was under the impression that you both had lost your way." A man with red hair, displaying a bored demeanor beside a woman with black hair, became noticeably alert when Naruto and Momo arrived. "Amusing. I apologize for my previous behavior. Let us consider a state of being occupied. Momo was required to wait for me." Momo bowed her head in embarrassment as she recalled the reason for Naruto's preoccupation. "Oh. Renji found Momo's reaction somewhat unexpected but chose not to focus on it extensively. You should proceed to line up to receive your Asachi. Kira positioned herself behind Hitsugaya to provide assistance. This is quite satisfactory. However, would you be able to facilitate an introduction to your friend? Naruto regarded the woman with short black hair as he made this statement. Regarding height, his eyes, despite being blindfolded, indicated that the woman before him stood at a mere 144 centimeters, which, in contrast to his own 190 centimeters or Renji's 188 centimeters, appeared quite diminutive. Oh! Are you referring to this young girl? Her name is Rukia. She is a long-standing acquaintance of mine. Renji made a slight gesture as he presented the girl. However, based on her manner of stomping on the ground, it appeared that she did not appreciate small primate visage. I am not diminutive. Understood. It is not my responsibility if you all happen to be exceptionally tall. What's more, I am still growing. Renji remarked with a smirk, growing. Please wake up. It has been a century since our paths first crossed. This is likely the conclusion for you. Observing the two engage in combat, Naruto offered a subtle smile. Lifting the edge of his blindfold, he extended his hand toward Rukia. I believe I have mentioned it several times already, but the name is Naruto Uzumaki. It is a pleasure to meet you, Rukia. I have a question. As Rukia extended her hand to shake Naruto's, she tilted her head slightly and encouraged, please proceed. When is the wedding between you and him? Naruto was surprised by how quickly a face could become as red as a tomato. Shortly after evading Rukia's ineffective attempts, as she was unable to make contact, Naruto positioned himself behind Toshiro, awaiting their opportunity to receive a sword. From what he understood, after receiving the Asachi, it was necessary to inject your Ryuryoku in it for an initial synchronization. Upon completion of this task, it required years of consistent communication and gradual development to ultimately learn the name of the Asachi. At that time, apart from the seated officers, very few official Shinigami were able to awaken the name of their Zanpakuto, let alone students in their position. This was intended to be the reality. At last, Toshiro was set to receive his Asachi. As he initiated the injection of his Ryuryoku, albeit for a brief moment, so brief that it went unnoticed by nearly everyone, the temperature in the surrounding area abruptly decreased. Naruto relied on his instincts above all else, and he understood their guidance clearly. The decrease in temperature was unusual, and he was aware of the responsible party. While it may not have been apparent to the others, the instant Toshiro infused the sword with his Ryuryoku, it was evident that more than just his energy permeated it. However, it also appeared to be an integral aspect of his own identity. So this is how the spirit of a Zanpakuto is born. He could conclude from this that Zanpakuto originate from the essence of their owner. This situation is becoming quite intriguing. Are those elements somewhat analogous to my relationship with Kurama? Naruto was associated with a highly formidable bijou. With my teaching approach, it's inevitable that my students excel. Naruto regarded the situation with a sense of satisfaction as he patted Toshiro's shoulder and positioned himself in front of the men presenting the sword. Name and class. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, Class 1. Utilize your sword and channel your Ryuryoku as demonstrated by others. Examining the seemingly ordinary katana, Naruto regarded the weapon with interest before infusing it with his Ryuryoku. He felt the same thing happening to him as it happened to Toshiro. A small part of him fused with the sword before it fell silent. After briefly swinging the sword, he returned it to its sheath and departed. Throughout the entire history of the Soul Society, he may have exhibited the least interest in his sword. For him, this Zanpakuto was indistinguishable from a cursed tool or the manipulation of a cursed spirit. Having it was beneficial, and it could yield some positive outcomes. This was not a necessity for him. The next day, Naruto joined the usual group, although Rukia was absent this time as it was not a shared course, and proceeded to the Kido training ground. The prior day, following the acquisition of their Zanpakuto, they underwent fundamental training that involved repetitively swinging the sword in a seemingly automatic manner. Naruto had never been a sword master. Ultimately, he never found it necessary to employ any weapons at all. However, this did not imply that he was inexperienced. One of his students, due to a deficiency in cursed energy, had to attain a high level of proficiency in wielding cursed weapons. How could he maintain his composure as an educator if he was unable to provide assistance to his students? Still, despite all his arrogance, he never belittled the necessity to understand the basics, and that's why he didn't riot even though the task was super boring. They should consider adopting more effective methods to engage students during their training sessions. He chuckled at the idea of the training regimen he had devised for Boruto during his early days as a novice. Naruto? Momo inquired after listening to him. Sorry, I'm just thinking about how cute Renji and Rukia were. While I do feel a sense of disappointment regarding Renji. He observed Renji become slightly tense at this moment. Could you please clarify your statement? Naruto glanced at him briefly before shaking his head. I won't involve myself in your romantic affairs, my friend. Please proceed as you wish. Renji tightened his fist before bowing his head. He understood the implications of Naruto's remarks. He had thought that he was able to hide his feelings quite well, but he must have been wrong if someone he just met 2 days ago could see it. The atmosphere cooled slightly, however. Naruto remained indifferent. Renji did, in fact, fall short of his expectations to some extent. He had never experienced love, yet he recognized the importance of valuing emotions like love and friendship above all else. After all, be it in his world or the afterlife, there was nothing easier than losing the people you cared for. This principle was particularly applicable to individuals like them who were preparing for combat. Instead of succumbing to self-doubt and uncertainty, it is essential to grasp the hand of your loved one and hold on firmly, regardless of the circumstances. It doesn't hold significance for me. Renji did not qualify as his friend. For Naruto, he was simply an entertaining individual who provided a welcome distraction. What would motivate him to invest his time in contemplating the personal issues of an individual he had only recently encountered? Kido Training Facility. The Kido training ground resembled a shooting range more than anything else. A stern black-haired woman, appearing to be in her early 20s, faced the students. She wore a black kimono adorned with a badge indicating her title as vice captain on her shoulder, complemented by a pair of glasses. Upon her arrival, the students commenced creating a disturbance. Greetings to all, I am Nanao Ise, a distinguished lecturer. Typically, I focus on instructing the 6th-year students during my free time. However, today I opted to teach the 1st-year students. Her voice was composed and somewhat distant as she adjusted her glasses, and if Naruto was not mistaken, she had directed a glance at him when she delivered the final line. The instructor scheduled to teach today proceeded to state, "You should feel fortunate to have this opportunity. Miss Ise serves as the vice captain of the 8th Division and is recognized as a Kido expert. 50 years ago, during her time as a student, she accumulated sufficient credits to join the Kido Corps and was notably recruited by the captain of the 8th Division, Shunsue Kairaku. This individual exemplifies the characteristics of a sycophant. With such impressive credentials, she certainly deserves it." Naruto thought in amusement. Meanwhile, despite maintaining a composed demeanor, Nanao sensed a flush of warmth spreading across her face. She had consistently disdained such excessive praise. Ultimately, her proficiency in Kido stemmed from the necessity of relying solely on their inherited Zanpakuto, as she was unable to form a connection with any other. Regarding the matter of being specially scouted, that individual was her own uncle. Therefore, she had no accomplishments to take pride in. Regardless, this is my objective. Observing the blindfolded silver-haired man, she acknowledged that despite her lack of interest in pursuing any relationship with a man, he possessed a notable handsomeness. She decided to teach the 1st years this time due to her curiosity about the men who had generated a small stir in the Siriidii prior to his arrival. More than anything, the part about how he had been able to learn Kido just by watching was something that made her really curious, though also a little jealous. Kido was a profound art, and few Shinigami, even at the captain level, could be said to reach the expert level, much less the level of master. Consequently, it was essential for her to confirm the existence of someone like him personally. Good afternoon, everyone. While some of you may already have a foundational understanding, I will start with the fundamental concepts. Please hold your questions until I have completed my presentation. Is that clear? Absolutely. She expressed her satisfaction with the response and proceeded to explain, Kido is a complex discipline that necessitates a thorough comprehension of Ryoryoku and Ryatsu manipulation. Throughout Kido's extensive history, we have successfully categorized it into 3 significant types. The method of annihilation, Heido. The methods of binding, Bakudo, and the methods of healing, Kido. Our Western branch refers to them as magic spells. However, those individuals have yet to achieve proper establishment. Is there a Western branch? It is quite understandable. It would be unusual for the afterlife to be exclusive to Asia. Naruto contemplated as he listened to Nanao. Excluding Kido, each Heido and Bakugo is assigned a number, with higher numbers indicating greater power. Additionally, there were other Kido beyond those three that were classified as forbidden Kido. However, she was not inclined to discuss it with the students. Ultimately, she appreciated the stability of having her head on her shoulders. Remembering how her mother had been executed because she broke some nonsensical law, her mood dampened. In order to use a Kido, 3 steps are necessary: visualizing the incantation, articulating the incantation, and designating the incantation. Allow me to present a mid-grade Heido as an example. She then turned to face one of the targets positioned approximately 100 meters away from her. Oh, my lord! Mask of blood and flesh, all creation, flutter of wings, ye who bears the name of men. The tumultuous sea barrier advances, proceeding southward with intensity. Heido 31 Shakkeiho. A sphere of intense energy materialized in her hand before being propelled forward with precision. The effects were constrained, however, the target was entirely destroyed. While the others were astonished by the power, Naruto, on the other hand, couldn't help but feel his smile falter slightly as she chanted her spell aloud. Even though the effects were pretty incredible, the problem wasn't here. I would rather endure extreme conditions than be found reciting a spell of this nature. He contemplated whether the creators of those Kido spells might have experienced Shinibu syndrome. Nanao, unaware of Naruto's thoughts, proceeded with her lecture. It is important to recognize that most adversaries will not remain passive like this target and allow you to complete your task. It is essential to be agile and employ various methods of incantation. However, the most straightforward approach is undoubtedly to forego the incantation entirely. However, as the level increases, the difficulty also escalates. Heido number 31 Shakkeiho. She once again cast the same spell, although it was evidently less potent. As you can observe, the disadvantage of utilizing a spell without the accompanying incantation is a reduction in potency. Are there any questions? Momo raised her hand and inquired. I conducted a search for some Kido spells during my spare time, but they proved to be quite difficult to locate. Furthermore, as you mentioned, they were not numbered. What is the reason for this? Nanao acknowledged, I am unable to provide an answer to this question. Frankly, Kido is not part of your lesson, as only the 4th division is authorized to teach it. If you are interested in healing, you just need to reach a good enough level in Bakuto and you will be accepted. Next. This time, Naruto inquired, is it feasible to perform a Kido without verbal incantation? Nanao expressed concern. To be candid, individuals with that capability are uncommon. Users of Kido are categorized into 3 distinct ranks: professionals, specialists, and authorities. Within the entirety of Siriidii, among all the current captains, I am aware of only 5 who possess mastery at this level, and only those individuals would be capable of fulfilling your request. Oh. Could you please provide the names of those 5 individuals? There is no issue. The foremost and most formidable is the Captain Commander, followed by Captain Unohana of the 4th Division. The 3rd individual is Captain Jinrei Kuchiki of the 6th Division. Subsequently, Captain Ishin Shiba of the 10th Division and, ultimately, Captain Yukitake of the 13th Division. Upon concluding the lecture, as students departed from one another, student Uzumaki Naruto. Please remain. Nanao Ise requested that Naruto halt his progress while he was accompanied by Hinamori and the group. He paused, shrugged, and then stated, please continue. I will talk with the charming lady. With a smile, he gestured with his hand before walking confidently toward Nanao. Hello, greetings. What brings you here today? Nanao furrowed her brow slightly at his manner of speaking, contemplating why the brilliant individuals she encountered often exhibited such peculiar personalities. Good morning, Mr. Naruto, I reached out to inquire about a particular matter. Could you reproduce the spell I just used as a demonstration? She remarked while gesturing towards the shooting range. She exhibited a strong sense of curiosity. Was he truly capable of accomplishing what was stated? Oh. Naruto inclined his head momentarily, then smiled as comprehension emerged within him. I am capable of doing that. Certainly, I am capable of doing that. However, what is the rationale for doing so? His previous light-hearted tone disappeared as his demeanor took on a much more serious nature. Despite his smile, Nanao instinctively recognized that he was not jesting. This unexpected shift was rather sudden, and she was surprised as she inquired, "Did I offend you?" He assessed her from head to toe before shaking his head and responding once more with a tone rich in amusement, "Nah, sorry. It appears that I may have been overly sensitive." He was not an entertainer who would perform at the behest of the audience. Throughout his life, he had observed numerous individuals behaving in this manner towards him, leading to his growing frustration. However, it appeared that there had been a misunderstanding. In an effort to ease the mood, he gathered a small sphere of Ryuryoku above his finger. "Now, let us return to the earlier discussion. I am open to displaying some charm to an attractive woman, but I require a bit of reciprocity." Nanao acknowledged with a nod. "What is your request?" "I would like to inform you that my financial resources are currently limited." "This is not an issue whatsoever. I do not require your financial assistance." "What comes next?" As he lifted his blindfold, he revealed a captivating smile and stated, "What I desire is if you express something inappropriate, such as stating that what I desire is you, I will respond with disapproval." She said this in such a matter-of-fact way that Naruto's smile cramped. With a slight slump, he inquired, "How did you anticipate this?" Nanao exhaled softly while shaking her head. How could she convey to him that she frequently encountered such trivial and click jokes nearly every day from her captain? Furthermore, she had long committed to abstaining from any form of relationship. She did not want to be another woman who caused her loved one pain due to the curse of the Ise clan. "What would you require in return for demonstrating your expertise?" With a resigned sigh, Naruto removed his blindfold and remarked, "You are truly lacking in enjoyment. However, it is of no consequence. I was serious when I expressed my desire for you." To be more specific, he indicated the target and quietly stated, "Heido 31 Shakkeiho." A fire beam, comparable in power to the one unleashed by Nanao during her full incantation, was emitted from his finger and completely destroyed the target. With his back turned to the explosion, he offered a confident smile and stated, "I seek your skills, your knowledge, your expertise. All aspects pertaining to you. What is your opinion?" Observing the men positioned before her, Nanao experienced an undeniable sense of unease. Simultaneously, she found herself contemplating. What is the extent of his potential? What level of power could he potentially achieve? Consequently, without hesitation, she responded, "I will impart all my knowledge to you." She recognized that her curiosity might lead to numerous challenges in the future. However, she could not pass up the chance to mentor a talent of his caliber. It is possible that she may observe the emergence of another master level in Kido. Following this event, 2 weeks elapsed. 2 weeks may appear brief, yet in practice, numerous events can unfold within that period. The initial observation was the consistent rise in the popularity of Naruto within the academy. He was increasingly gaining a reputation as a challenging student. What is the reason for this? Following the initial 3 days of class, during which he diligently engaged with the introduction to the fundamental arts, he soon transitioned into a pattern of truancy. He opted to forego all classes except for homeroom and general knowledge, and even during those sessions, he could often be found either sleeping or reading a book while the lecture proceeded. Today was intended to be a session focused on Hoho and Hakuta for the first-year students. The same professor typically conducted both classes, as the techniques focused on utilizing Ryuryoku to enhance the body and engage in combat. Kairo Fan, the lecturer, consistently took pride in his position and the course he instructed. Ultimately, the majority of Shinigami do not achieve the awakening of their Zanpakuto. At the same time, only a limited number of Shinigami demonstrated a genuine interest or aptitude for Kido. However, what about Hakuta and Hoho? The skills acquired were essential for effective functioning in a battlefield environment. For him, those two skills represented the highest form of excellence. As a member of the esteemed Fan family, he found it unacceptable to accept this student. Naruto Uzumaki. He expressed his frustration with a distinctly raised voice. His gaze, fixed on the student reclining on the grass, conveyed intense disapproval. Satoru stretched briefly before rising to his feet. Hello, instructor. What brings you to my office on this lovely morning? His casual response nearly caused Cairo to have a stroke. Taking a deep breath, he continued in a composed manner, Student Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Could you please clarify why you were unable to attend class today? Naruto adjusted his black glasses as he rose to his feet. The glasses were custom-made for him following a detailed discussion of his requirements. Similar to his counterpart in the elemental nations, they were almost impenetrable to anyone other than him. Observing the professor, he sighed and remarked, "You are an excellent educator. However, I believe your class is not suitable for my needs." Naruto exhibited a serious demeanor. While certain noble students exhibited a sense of superiority towards the commoners from the Rakangai, there was a notable absence of overt bullying or conflict. The information was clear and comprehensible. The nobles lacked authority over the Godii 13, and it was not unusual for individuals from the Rakangai to ascend to the rank of seated officers. No astute individual would inconvenience someone who has the potential to achieve greatness. The same applied to the professors. Despite their noble status, they treated the students without distinction. The individual before him was a committed educator who, apart from a strong sense of pride in his subject matter, exhibited no negative characteristics. Naruto recognized that the man was responding with justified anger. However, this did not alter his perspective on the issue. "I will be candid with you. I have reached a point where I feel I can no longer gain any further insights from you. Shuinpa is an exceptionally impressive art form. It was remarkably impressive to the point of being intimidating. During his leisure hours, specifically when he chose to skip class, he conducted research on the accomplishments of various current and former captains in the Soul Society, and all he could articulate was a single word: impressive. A notable achievement in speed that he encountered was a technique known as speed clone, which is derived from Shuinpa. To create a speed clone with minimal blur, a human would realistically need to move at a speed of approximately Mach 3 at the very least. The information gathered indicated that Soifan was capable of producing over 10 clones simultaneously. He experienced a shudder at the mere contemplation of the speed required for such an accomplishment. If he had confronted her at that time, regardless of Rikugen, she would have decisively outmatched him. At this point, I believe I will have the opportunity to compete without experiencing humiliation. He was contemplating this when, from the corner of his eye, he observed the teacher employing Shuinpa. In comparison to the less experienced groups of the second division he faced earlier, his speed was distinctly superior. Nevertheless, insufficient speed. He skillfully evaded the teacher and positioned himself behind her while delivering a strike. Cairo swiftly blocked the incoming strike with his arms, then seized Naruto's fist and delivered another punch. Despite the challenging circumstances, Naruto chose not to evade the punch but instead responded with a counter of his own. As the connection was about to be established, a smile appeared on his face, black flash. A surge of black lightning coalesced around his fist, as the surrounding air appeared to erupt from the sheer force of the energy being unleashed. Kairo's expression shifted. He understood that if their punch landed in this scenario, losing his arm would be the least of his concerns. However, just as the event was about to unfold, he received a low kick from Naruto, causing him to be propelled several meters away. Hee. It appears that I have emerged victorious. He displayed a V sign of victory and smiled before departing. Please hold on. Excuse me. What is it, Professor? Are you interested in another match? Cairo chose not to respond to the provocation. His expression suggested that he had encountered something truly unsettling. The Hakuta technique in question. Who was your instructor for that? He was highly impressed by Naruto's proficiency in Shuinpa. However, that final technique. Excuse me. I was not instructed by anyone. Unfeasible. Are you indicating that you developed it independently? Hee. One might consider that to be the case. Copyright is highly frustrating. The creator of Black Flash is unlikely to voice any complaints, correct? I believe I should have demonstrated that attending your class is not a necessity for me. Goodbye. I have an upcoming date with an attractive young woman who wears glasses. He waved his hand and started to walk away, then paused to add, additionally, this is not Hakuta, it is Jujitsu. Jujitsu? Cairo quietly contemplated the unusual name, becoming lost in thought. the technique he employed was unmistakably reminiscent of another method with which he was familiar. Shunko. It represented the pinnacle of Hakuta. A method that combines Hakuta and Kido, resulting in a formidable gust of wind enveloping the user's arms and back. A technique that has been created and developed by the current captain, Soifan. And Yoruichi seeks to assert copyright. Despite the existing differences, the similarities were significant enough to warrant attention. I must inform Captain Soifan. Naruto, unaware of the existence of Shunko, was humming contentedly. Throughout the 2-week period, Nanao's instruction significantly enhanced his understanding of Kido. Additionally, she had instructed him in all the Heido and Bakuto techniques from 1 to 60. Despite having mastered techniques up to 70, she declined to teach him those methods, as only seated officers were permitted to learn Heido above 60. Given Naruto's desire to avoid causing issues for his benefactor, he refrained from insisting and initiated the process of developing jujitsu within the Soul Society. For this purpose, he selected Black Flash and Divergent Fist as subjects for his experiment. Divergent Fist was merely a rudimentary manifestation of cursed energy. The Black Flash technique is a complex method that necessitates a high level of control over cursed energy. The Black Flash technique involves creating spatial distortion by connecting with the impact of cursed energy within a time frame of 0.000001 seconds following a physical hit. The phenomenon results in cursed power manifesting as a Black Flash. Due to this stringent requirement, he was unable to consistently maintain or utilize Black Flash during his lifetime. Simultaneously, he had not exerted significant effort, as this technique was not necessary for him during his lifetime. Ultimately, that technique resulted in a 2.5 increase in strength. For his daughter Himawari, who possessed remarkable physical strength, Black Flash resembled bestowing wings upon a tiger. However, for him, it had proven to be ineffective, at least during his lifetime. Experiencing a sensation in his arms, he couldn't suppress a smirk. Ryoryoku demonstrates a clear superiority over cursed technique. The increase generated by his Black Flash exceeded his expectations significantly. Approximately 5. This was truly remarkable. The optimal choice. This is not the end point. What brought him true happiness was not the Black Flash itself, but the understanding that any cursed technique he employed with Ryoryoku would significantly surpass the original version. If that is the case, what outcomes can be anticipated if I successfully recreate Limitless? He experienced a thrill of anticipation at the mere thought. For the sake of clarity, the Fan family is, in fact, the Fong family, and Soifan is, in truth, Sui Fong. I am uncertain about the reasons behind the alteration of her name in Japanese in certain adaptations. I am accustomed to Soifan, so I will continue to utilize it. Let us discuss Shunko. Soifan successfully developed it independently. Yoruichi was the pioneer in its creation. Their Shunko are fundamentally different as a result of this. Soifan's Shunko is derived from the element of wind. Yoruichi's Shunko is founded on the principle of lightning. The Black Flash from Jujutsu resembles Yoruichi's Shunko, however, the Black Flash solely enhances strength, whereas Shunko enhances both speed and strength, indicating that Shunko is significantly superior. The author of Jujutsu appears to have drawn some inspiration from it. I established a dedicated channel for gotcha discussions within my server. Access to the bulletin board requires the Naruto role. If you have any questions or would like to engage in a discussion about Naruto, please feel free to reach out. Stay tuned for more. Thank you for watching this amazing video. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel for more content. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.